in small-town America that fueled Donald Trump's historic victory, upset victory. For Hillary Clinton, the Obama coalition ultimately did not show up for her the way it did in 2008 and 2012. Let's take Trump's surprise showings in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. He won rural and small-town Michigan with 57% of the vote compared to 53% for Mitt Romney. That's an uptick. In Wisconsin, he won rural and small towns with 63%, 10 points higher than Romney. In Pennsylvania, he won 71% of the vote in rural and small towns, 71%, 12 points better than Romney. But Hillary Clinton did 5 points worse than Obama with African Americans, 6 points worse with Latinos, 5 points worse with millennials. They didn't get as excited as they did for Obama. Clinton's performance in small-town America led to defeats in states we never saw coming. So what are the Democrats doing wrong? What did they do wrong now? John Brabender ought to know. He's a Republican strategist. Steve McMahon's a Democratic strategist. Gentlemen, I respect both of you. So I want to ask John Brabender to open up with the answer to the question I keep having. Why is there a silent majority for Donald Trump that didn't get picked up by pollsters? What's the disconnect?
Well, I think there were two different groups that were a little bit separate from one another. First of all, in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, you had a lot of blue-collar Democrats, many of them who were union members, who were going to vote for Donald Trump. But believe me, they're not answering the phone and telling people publicly they're voting for Donald Trump. The second thing is Donald Trump was made toxic to a lot of college-educated, moderate women who are not going to publicly go out and say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. But in the day, Donald Trump didn't win among them, but he didn't lose by the margins everybody thought. The third wild card, quite frankly, was what we call Walmart moms, is non-college educated women overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump in these states.
And was that the case? And why was, again, they weren't going to talk to pollsters. What is it about the pollsters? Do they see the pollsters as the media, as the establishment, as Ivy Leaguers? What is it about them that makes them think that they can put a lawn sign up, but they're not going to tell somebody who they're voting for on the phone?
Well, one of the things we started to go through is start to ask people, you may not be voting for Donald Trump, but do you think your neighbor is more likely to vote for them? And we were finding the answer was absolutely. Yeah. I think my neighbor might be there. And the truth of the matter is these people do not trust pollsters. Plus, quite frankly, a lot of the media made it toxic to say that you were voting for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let me go to Steve. Steve, give me your thoughts about this, because I'm still having a hard time getting myself used to standing on this earth right now. This is a different earth today than it was 24 hours ago. It's a different place. It just is different. The people I was in the room with there at the Hillary Hotel tonight, I thought it was interesting. They downgraded the hotel for the concession speech. They went away from a fancy hotel to another one. Was profound unhappiness, which I love in politics, is to show true commitment, and a loss of something they all counted on as reality. They thought the reality was that Hillary Clinton was going to start dispensing patronage starting this morning. And there were the ambassadorships people paid heavily for. That's how it works. And all these positions of authority and prestige were all going to be dished out by her. Instead, she came in and said, I don't even have a job. It was so profoundly different than anybody expected.
Yeah, it was very profoundly different. I actually am a little less cynical. I think a lot of those people are crestfallen and
I know
depressed.
those are there too. I know.
Because they today read that Mitch McConnell is going to repeal Obamacare very quickly, and the House is going to do it. Because they know that the Supreme Court now is going to be filled by somebody more like an Anthony Scalia or Antonin Scalia than someone like a Merrick Garland. And they know that the next 2 or 3 Supreme Court picks will set the direction for the country for many, many years. So I think there's a little bit of disappointment because there were a lot of people who were planning their role in the administration. But I think really what's sinking in for Democrats is everything that Barack Obama did for the last 4 years or 8 years is going to be largely undone to the extent that Republicans can undo it. And that's going to start right now. And 20 million people are probably going to lose their health care coverage because the Republicans are going to repeal it without having anything to replace it with. Yeah. And the people who need it the most are going to be the ones who end up holding the bag again. And a lot of those people, by the way, voted for Donald Trump.
Well, let's go over to those people. Let me go to John, and then I'll come back to you, Steve. I talked about this the other night, that a lot of people like Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who was a bit of a visionary, we all agree, back when Bobby Kennedy was killed, he said, you know, he wrote a letter to Ted Kennedy that he never actually mailed, which said, you know, we're giving up, we're losing the people that were always Democrats, the working class, Irish, Italian, Polish, whatever. They're working class people who had been for Roosevelt going back to FDR and certainly back to Jack Kennedy. And we're losing them, and they should be our people. They should be our people. And then I watched this thing the other night on Saturday Night Live where the working guys, and Trump guy, played by Tom Hanks, was given all the same answers on a show called, a joke show called Black Jeopardy as the African Americans were given. Why can't the Democrats hold together a coalition of black, white, and brown on economic issues for working people? Why have they lost the ability to hold them all together? What happened?
Well, first of all, I think the mistake is to say it's Democrats. I think it's Democrats and Republicans. I think this is a group that feels like the American dream of you follow the rules, work hard, you can get ahead, has been stolen from them. And I think they blame Democrats and Republicans for leaving them on the economic playing field. And I think this also played into the argument that Hillary Clinton learned how to play the system and take advantage of it where they don't have that option. And I think that created a resentment that scored points for Donald Trump, quite frankly.
What do you think of that, Steve?
No, I think John's absolutely right. I think there's a cultural and elitism that sort of exudes from the establishment that the middle class and working folks just resent. And you know, Hillary Clinton has for a long time been part of Washington, and as John points out, to many of those people, she's somebody who learned how to play the game, played it quite well. And you know, she was always at a disadvantage because it was a third term, you know, that she was seeking effectively for the Obama administration. She'd been around for a long time. She'd been beaten up for a long time. This was always going to be tough. She ran, I think, a great campaign, but there's no question, Chris, that those people who felt like they were left behind were lashing out at Washington, and she was more Washington than Donald Trump was, and that's why he won.